everyone.
What's up, YouTube? We're about to go live to talk to you about this pull-up progression series that we're doing. We're talking about how to strengthen the biceps and lats today. It's going to be a killer show. Make sure you stay tuned. We're just waiting for our notifications to get out to everyone. So you want to get better at pull-ups. Well, in today's episode, we're diving deeper and we're going to be talking to you about how to strengthen your biceps and your lats, an absolutely critical concept to understand if you're struggling to get better at pull-ups. Now, make sure you stick around to the end because we're going to answer some really good questions, and we're going to also reveal the biggest mistakes that people are making when working towards their pull-ups. All that and more coming up.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.
Hey everyone, in case we haven't met, my name's Rad Burmeister. I am the co-founder of Unity Gym and the co-creator of the UMS, the Unified Movement System, where we teach you how to be an absolute superhuman. And the way we get such astonishing results with our members is that we've created a program that has a balance between strength and flexibility. If you want to know how we do it, you can download our free flexibility blueprint. There's a link in the description. As always, I'm joined by the legendary Phil White, our resident physiotherapist. How are you, Phil?
Very well today. Yep, feeling good. Feeling ready. Excited about this topic. Everyone seems to be pretty interested, and getting plenty of questions and good feedback. So get your questions in there early, and we'll get right to it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're watching, please hit the like button and comment with your name and where you're watching from, so we can give you a shout out.
Yep. And Michael P, right you are. The Mo is coming along nicely.
Yeah. What we want to know, I want to know this as well for anyone that's watching, even if you're not watching live. Did you know that scapular depression, what we spoke about yesterday, was so important for a pull-up? And if so, what have you been doing to work on it? We want to know. We want to get your feedback.
Did you give those active pulls hangs a go? And if so, you might be feeling some DOMs in places you maybe haven't felt them in a while or ever before.
Yeah.
Let us know.
Yeah, let us know how you're going with it. So today, look, the key insight for today's show. This is the big takeaway. The key insight for the show is the importance of strengthening the biceps and the lats if you can't do pull-ups by using regressions. So a lot of people just hammer away at trying to do pull-ups without doing anything else, and they misunderstand the importance of strengthening these two components, because the bicep is what's responsible for the elbow flexion and the lats what's responsible for the shoulder extension. And if those two muscles, those two massive big muscles, aren't working well, then by just trying to do the pull-up, which is a very complex movement, the pull-up is a complex movement. There's a lot of things going on in several joints in the body, and if you can't strengthen those two muscles there by using regressions, then you're going to really struggle doing the pull-up.
Yeah, I think we've got quite a few comments yesterday and over the last 24 hours about people who just can't even get anywhere on their first pull-up, and no matter how many times you just keep pulling, like you can do the eccentrics and everything, but to get really targeted strengthening using dumbbells and being able to use the progressive overload that's so much simpler on a free weight where you can go up step by step with those weights is going to be really important. And when you're thinking about with your training, if you're needing an explosive movement to get up into that top position, especially if you're going to be transitioning into muscle ups, then using a dumbbell where you can really control the weight and get that good intention and fast contraction behind your concentric movement, then that's such an essential part of your training, because your muscles will strengthen in the way that you train them. So eccentrics are an awesome way of building up the strength at the beginning, but if you don't have that kind of intention and the neural drive that you're sending to that concentric contraction, then you're going to be not developing as fast. So using the dumbbells is such a good tool even for those people out there who just love their calisthenics.
Yeah, that's right, absolutely. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go out on the gym floor and we're going to show you a couple of ways that you can train the biceps and also the lats using regression, so that you don't have to kill yourself on the pull-up. So let's get out on the gym floor. I'm going to do a little bit of a strip show as I always do.
Let's do it. And I have triple checked that the mic is on today and that I've got everything unmuted, so we should be good to go today. All right.
The first thing that I want to talk about is the range of motion that the bicep has. So you need to understand, a lot of people think that that's all the bicep does, and they're wrong, because the long head of the bicep comes up and connects into the labrum up here, which means that because it's crossing that shoulder joint, the full range of the bicep is actually coming from full shoulder extension right up to shoulder flexion like that.
So it's more than just an elbow flexor, it's also a shoulder flexor as well, because it crosses again into that labrum, the superior labrum, but also into coracoid process on your scapula. So Brad's spot on there. Like when people train their biceps, they're only ever doing it down here, and they're not taking their bicep through that full range.
Yep. So some good examples of some different ways to do some bicep curls. Richie, do you want to come over there so you can film from the side? You can actually, these are some of our favourites at the Unity Gym here, is doing a 45-degree incline curl. So where I'm leaning back, because what that does is it brings my upper arm right back into extension here, and then training the bicep there. That's something that a lot of people don't do with bicep training. And then you want to train right through the range. So you can also do standing curls where you're just training in this range. And then you can even do, we don't have a preacher curl here, but you could do single arm like this, where you're on a bench and you're training the bicep in a forward position like that. Or you can even do, which it is harder to do, but you can do where you just hold it. This is even too much weight for me. It's so much harder when you bring it out there and you just do curls like this. Okay? Yeah.
And so in that, when he's leaning back there with that 45 degrees, so you can see there that the shoulder's actually going into extension there. So he's working on that at the shoulder joint. It's now stretched, and you're going to be working in a different sort of range. So you can see how if you're going up into a pull-up and you're going all the way up into that top position, that by the end there, you're really pushing into that extension. You're at that two sort of in a range there. So
yeah. And also another variable to play with bicep training is going through a supinated grip, a neutral grip, and even a pronated grip. They're different ways that you can periodize. I've just shown those in the order of difficulty. Usually when you get closer to a pronated grip, it puts more strain on these muscles here, and that's something that people need to condition themselves for. So there's different ways you can go about that, but that's another variable you can use.
And so as we'll go into in the next couple of shows, talking about the different grips again, so you can go supinated, neutral, and pronated grip when you're doing the actual pull-up, using the dumbbells and practicing those movements is really a great way of building up, because you're going to be targeting different muscles than just when you're doing a supinated one, you're just getting your biceps. When you start to get into those different grips, that's going to really train through the different parts of your muscles that are allowing those movements.
So now we're going to talk about the lats, and because the lat controls shoulder extension and also shoulder abduction like that, there's different ways that you can train it.
Adduction. Sorry, I'm a stickler for the correct words here.
I just had a massage and just got off the massage table, and I can barely keep my eyes open at the moment. So, excuse me. Yes, shoulder adduction.
Yep.
So there's different ways you can train it, but a really good way, in a way that you can use progressive overload which means you can control the weight really well, so that you're always getting the right amount of weight for you, so you can do your 8 to 10 reps or 5 reps or 10 to 12 or whatever your desired rep range is for the mesocycle that you're on, is with a bent over row, a single arm bent over row. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get down, so I've got one knee on the bench like this, and then put my weight so I've got weight in my hand and weight in my knee. This knee is going to come in line with this knee here, and the knee is under the hip like that. So any variable like this or like this or like this is going to change the exercise. And the best way to do it is to have this knee under the hip, this knee next to this knee, and this hand under the shoulder. And then from here, I'm just going to relax so that my shoulder protracts, and then I'm going to retract the shoulder as I pull the weight up to touch my chest, back down, slowly release. For a beginner, you can practice going 1, 2, 3, 4, because you want to learn how to really control that retraction and protraction. But for somebody that's a little bit more of a seasoned veteran, you want to do this all in one go. So you just want to feel like you're trying to start a lawnmower, where you're pulling the shoulder back and just yanking up like this, and then down slowly. Yanking up like this. Hey, Yanni! And coming down like that. So the reason why this is such a good exercise is because it actually gives a lot of lat recruitment. It's very, very good. But what it's also doing is bringing the bicep into the movement. So you're using the muscles, you're using the bicep and the lat in a way that is going to really transfer over to the pull-up. So let's get back into the studio.
Just got a couple of deliveries here, so just excuse the extra sound here. There's a bit going on. So we'll head back in. Bit quieter, got it. Junior shot? Yeah. Yeah, right about to just sit here, rig out, but I'm sure a few of the viewers wouldn't mind, but keeping it professional. So sorry about if that sound got a bit bad there. We just had a delivery coming into the gym there, and you might have seen me just kind of scoot around trying to get into a position where I've got the lapel mic on. So if I was standing in some or kneeling in some uncomfortably close positions there, that's just trying to get the microphone there.
Yeah. So those movements there, I cannot emphasize to you how important they are in the development of your pull-up. They're very, very valuable. And I was somebody that probably for a decade in my earlier days of being a personal trainer, I had this attitude that you only need to do compound movements, meaning movements that involve multiple joints moving, that train multiple muscle groups, as opposed to isolated movements like something like the bicep curl, which is only one joint that's really moving. And I had that belief. It was really a misguided belief. It comes from, there's certain schools of thought. Some experts will tell you that compound movements are all you need to do, and others will tell you that isolated movements also complement your training. And I'm definitely a big believer now that isolated movements are absolutely essential in training a body. There is a time and a place for them. And if you're trying to get to a pull-up and you can't do it, then doing isolated movements like the scap pull-ins, like a bicep curl, figuring out these weak links in your kinetic chain and then working on them, they are critical for your success.
And that's why it's okay to look back at the video we first did in this series about identifying where those weak links are, because if you're just trying to hammer away at the same compound movement and that's not working, if you've still got that weak link in there, then you're gonna be able to. Your strong links are going to allow you to do certain things, but your weak links are never going to catch up. So doing isolated movements like the bicep curl in this case, or the scapular depressions, then that's going to really target that area, let it catch up, and then you can develop and progress from there. So it's a really useful tool in terms of progression.
Yep. So we got a good question here from Jasper O'Kearney, who's saying, do chin-ups or pull-ups recruit more of the lats? So if you don't know what the difference is, this is commonly referred to as a chin-up, and this is commonly referred to as a pull-up.
I should rename them to chest-ups, because the chin is kind of why people get to this area where they're just tucking their chin over, but really what we want is that chest to bar.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
So
we like to call them supinated pull-ups and pronated pull-ups because that's the more correct term of terminology. So there's a couple of schools of thought here, Jasper, and I'm going to tell you my experience. So this is to be taken with a grain of salt. This is not to be taken as gospel. If you speak to a bodybuilder, at least the bodybuilders that I've spoken to, they'll definitely tell you that if you do pull-ups, you train the lats more, and if you do chin-ups, that you train the biceps more. And it is true in that sense. You definitely get more bicep recruitment in the supinated grip chin-up or the chin-up, because what happens is, if you analyze a chin-up, you go from full extension of the elbow to almost full flexion of the elbow. So the bicep is a big part of that. Whereas when you do a pull-up or a pronated grip pull-up, you go from full extension of the elbow, but you only go to about there. So depending on, the wider your hands go, the less flexion that you get. Oh, look at this. We've got some remedy kombucha. Well, that's not kombucha. It's tapachi, which is some other new live culture drink. Mexican pineapple drink. Beautiful. Get into that.
The delivery interrupting the sound quality is worth it. Ooh.
So the first thing to say is that you absolutely get more biceps when you do a pull-up because of the reason that I just said there, which means that if there's more bicep and you're doing the same movement, less bicep, the lat is going to have to do more, okay? So if the bicep isn't able to work as much, you're going to have to use the lat more. So when you do a pull-up that way, a pronated grip pull-up, you are going to have more lat in the movement and less bicep. That said, I've heard bodybuilders and people talk about that if you do a wide grip pull-up, it gives you a thicker back, whereas if you do a supinated grip pull-up, it doesn't work your back so much. And I think there's a misunderstanding, this is my opinion, that people think that it's because you recruit the lat in a different way, or you use the muscle in a different way. And my understanding of muscles is that they don't really work that way. It really just contracts and relaxes. And in my opinion, it's more about using periodization and just changing between supinated, pronated, and neutral grip, and varying the width of your hands so that you get all these different variables and you train the shoulders in all these different ways. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Phil?
First up, struggling on the opening the drink there. I've just come out of doing the massage, and so I've got oily hands, and I'm trying to open it. So
you're struggling,
So just to clarify there, I mean, I probably could go with going back to the grip strength stuff we did on day one and work on there, but
that is
mostly
unbelievable.
How good is that?
Residual massage oil. Yeah.
Well, these are sugar-free, by the way. In Australia, this brand Remedy is endorsed by the I Quit Sugar, whatever they are. So this has got like 7 calories in it, this whole drink, and it is unbelievable. Maybe it's got 7 grams of sugar, 7 grams, so maybe more calories than that.
Still got it.
Anyway,
so my thoughts on this particular question is think about, like, you've got, every time you're trying to get your chest up to the bar, you're going to have to get your body weight up there, and so if you're doing a chin-up, then you're definitely going to be using a lot of your bicep to get up there, because you're going into that sort of true elbow flexion, and so your bicep's going to be taking a certain percentage of your body weight, say for example, maybe 30%, and then with your shoulder extension, so your elbow passing back to your midline, that's going to be your lats predominantly doing that movement. So in this case, say 70%. Obviously, there's a whole lot of other muscles that are incorporated here, so it won't be that exact. But just for this example, 30% bicep, 70% lats. So when you're going into that pronated position, as Rad was sort of saying, your biceps aren't going to be as used there because of that positioning. So it might kind of change to more of a 80%, and then 20% potentially with the biceps, but also as you're getting into that position, you're probably using a bit more brachialis and brachioradialis as well. So definitely. Yes, it will probably use your lats more because you still have to get your body weight up there. But as you said, it's so important to just do all 3 different grips, periodize it, so you work on one for a while, work on the other, because that's going to build the best sort of system you can get.
And you know what's funny, Jasper, and anyone that's watching this, there was a period of time when, even though I was always tried to pride myself as saying I wasn't a bodybuilder and I wasn't into it. But there was a period of time where my training was focused around the way my body looked and trying to make my chest look bigger and trying to make this look bigger. And I never really achieved any great results. It's mostly because I just wasn't as committed as what bodybuilders were to it. But since I've adopted an idea around training, which is 100% around performance, it's completely about how my body performs. I found that what I was doing, like I'd get told that this exercise is better at building the chest or this is better at building the lats, and you get hung up on that one exercise because that's what people have told you, rather than using periodization properly, which means that you should vary the exercise selection that you're doing. And since I've done that, and the way I look at my training now is I think, okay, well, I've done pronated grip pull-ups for 6 weeks. I'm going to do some supinated grip ones now, just purely because I haven't done them for a while. My physique has grown so much better since adopting that philosophy, and my strength has gone through the roof. So my personal experience is that I can highly recommend that you shouldn't think to yourself, oh, I need to build my lats up more with my pull-ups, so I'm going to do this one, or I need to build my biceps more. Just periodize and think about the way that the whole body works and the whole system works.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And again, always thinking about what you're actually wanting to achieve. Think about your goals. Is it a performance-based thing? Is it an athletic thing? Are you trying to get to muscle-ups? Because that will also impact your choice. For Karina, the ingredients here, we've got...
pure water, pineapple juice, remedy
juice at the start.
Tapache,
okay.
live culture from the pineapple juice,
Yep.
natural sweeteners, erythritol and sterviol, natural pineapple flavour, natural cinnamon flavour, and natural turmeric extract.
There you go.
It's awesome. All right, let's get into some of these questions. We've had some good engagement recently.
And,
now,
yeah, you're right, Quack. Usually he only does come in and chat about Rad's chest.
I was going to, but
he
I
was.
held back.
But
I
the
held
thing
back
is,
because I was
Quack,
distracted by the delicious drink we've just been given.
he's also distracted by the fact that I'm actually got more muscle on my body than he does now, and the scales don't lie.
He's definitely
So
quieting
he
down
doesn't
now.
really have a leg to stand on. That's why he's sitting quietly behind the camera. So let's. Graham Ricketts is saying on yesterday's show, saying, "Holy shit, I'm a protractor." I love it. I can bang out 10 pull-ups pronated grip, but if I try to depress those dang scapula, I stall at the top. It feels like I can't quite complete the rep. I guess this is what it feels like to have weak lower traps. Shit, just done another 3 singles, and the midline below the scapula feels like it's been punched. Thanks, guys. I'm really going to persevere with this. If I master this, maybe a muscle-up is still a possibility. Absolutely. Graham, I cannot tell you how humbling it was for me to learn about scapular depression and protraction, especially with a pronated grip pull-up. I went from being able to do like 15 supinated grip pull-ups and about 10 to 12 pronated grips to being able to do, when I started this, I could barely do 1 chest to bar pull-up, and then I'd do maybe 3 or 4 other ones in a pronated grip, and I could do maybe 4 chest to bar like this in a supinated grip, and then another, 4 or 5 not so good ones. I've progressed a lot since then, but it's taken years. It wasn't months that I got better at that. It has literally taken me years, because I had to go back to the drawing board and I had to use these principles that we're talking about here, where I had to regress and think of strengthening my lats and my biceps and the scapular depressors, and it's been a very worthwhile journey though.
Yeah. Sorry, Phil. I answered Graham typing here, and one of the things that I've found the most surprising, being a coach for 16 years, is how few people can actually do a decent quality pull-up. And it is a leading cause of, I think, injuries. I know a lot of people who end up with problems in the forearms, problems in the elbows, problems in the shoulders from not learning the basics of sort of controlling and moving the scapula and how to stabilize the shoulders.
Yeah, I just want to say that I love this comment because I guess what really excites me, and I know with Rad as well, is that we want people to understand how to, analyze what they're doing in their own bodies and to be able to, check their own training and develop on their own. So that's what really, excites me about this opportunity, is to get that education out there to people, to be able to understand the basic principles of, all the different muscles in your body and the different systems you're using, and for you to be able to, have that awareness around why maybe you're not progressing or why things are maybe getting a bit sore. So I love that comment that you've tried something out, you've got something out of the video, and you know what to do next. So that's awesome.
It's unreal, and this is what we really want to do for you guys. We want to give you guys some really good usable information. So good that it's being put to good use. So looks like you've answered that one, Phil.
Yeah.
Yep. Should I move on to the next one? Yeah. So Cohen Parker is saying on the same video yesterday, great video, Yanni, Phil and Rad. Thanks for advice with the one-hand progressions. I've been indoor rock climbing for 2 years now. Also, I'd love to watch a series on muscle-ups. Well, we got you covered because that is coming up. My mates and I don't have proper form when we do them on a normal pull-up bar. Thanks, guys. Yeah, we're going to cover you, man. We're going to go into muscle-ups either next week or the week after.
Yeah. And the question that was before that I answered, I typed up was... talking about the scapular depression, but also the fact that what held them back in their pull-ups is the medial elbow tendinopathy, so the golfer's elbow. So again, with everyone getting excited about doing pull-ups now, just remember that like if you progress too quickly with anything, you're going to run into a bit of trouble. So just take things slow, figure out your weak links, and then slowly progress. And again, just like muscle-ups, in the not so distant future, we'll be definitely doing a series on that golfer's elbow because I know it is such a bane of gym goers experience there.
That comment is so important that people slow down and have a real listen to. The biggest thing that I think people forget is that there's a lot happening when you're developing strength, and the body usually unpacks strength at the right pace for you. Like you can't fast track it. Yeah. And when you do, you always end up like critically hurting something that slows you down, you know. And progressing too fast is...
And just to give like a little bit of insight onto that, so when you're developing strength at the beginning, before your muscles even get any bigger, before you the actual fibers itself get bigger, the strength that you're actually getting is usually neurological strength. So you have motor units, and we'll go into this maybe another episode in more detail, but basically you're able to access more strength in the way that if you see like a mother can pick up a car off a baby because they're able to access these kind of dormant large motor units if you send neural drive there. So when you're beginning with your strength training, that's going to be the biggest thing that's going to make a change. So and then like 6 weeks later you start to get muscle hypertrophy, and then like 3 months later, your your ligaments and your fascia, that starts to thicken and change, and then like further down the track, your bone starts to change. So you got to realize that when you're getting stronger, it's not all happening evenly. So you might start getting stronger muscles, or even before the muscles have hypertrophied, you're suddenly accessing more strength. And you've got to realize there's a lag period there with the rest of your soft tissue and the hard tissue to catch up. So if you just push yourself because you're like, wow, look what I can do now, then you're probably going to run into issues. Yeah. So we'll go into that if you're interested another time.
I love that because
inside bomb right there, folks.
Yeah, and I'll give you a little bit of my own personal experience with that. I did Kung Fu at a level that a lot of people would consider mad from the age of about 17 until 30, where it really consumed my life outside of work time and outside of leisure time with my friends. And I trained most days of the week. Most weeks I trained between 4 and 6 days a week for about 3 hours a day, maybe even 4 hours a day some days. And I was quite capable, especially with my lower body, and I didn't realize this. My Kung Fu training did virtually nothing for my upper body compared in terms of strength, raw strength development, because we just didn't lift weights and we didn't do things. We had a chin-up bar at my Kung Fu Academy that I barely touched. I didn't have any kind of programming for it. Every now and then I'd go up and do a few pull-ups, and we did some push-ups, and that was it. And we did all these push-ups on our wrists and everything. And when I got into the army, we did some strength training, but it was mostly about fitness in the army. And then when I got out of the army when I was 34 and I started training with Yanni, that was the first time I really started doing weightlifting properly. And so that was 8 years ago now. And I thought, because in my mind, I was this fit, strong person that was very capable. I'd just come out of a lifetime of exercise, that I thought I could really do these things. And when I really got my first humbling experience was when I started working towards a one-arm pull-up. And I was doing all the progressions, and to look at me in the mirror, I had muscles, and I developed golfer's elbow. And that had a roll-on effect that led to a bunch of other things that I had to deal with. And then going further and further with my upper body strength training, I got a slap tear in my shoulder from pushing myself with calisthenics movements. And I'm in a better place than I've ever been now, but it's the amount of years that it's taken me to develop the strength that I can really use. And if I knew now what I knew, if I knew back then what I know now, I'm sure that I wouldn't have had those injuries, because I would have recognized the discomfort in my body that I could feel leading up to them, and I could have taken
And not
measures.
only that, the biggest, I just did my thesis on subsequent injury risk in AFL, and we were looking at particularly concussion, but with that I went through a big kind of deep dive into things that make people more injury prone. And basically, if you've had an injury before, you're much more likely to get a subsequent injury, because as soon as you change your training and deload, then all the other structures apart from the particular place you just injured are now deloaded, and then you want to rush back in once that particular thing is fixed up. And then you go back hard at what you used to be doing, but because you've had all this time off, suddenly all those structures are less prepared to get back into exercise. So that's why it's so important when you're seeing a physio that you're not only just focusing on the actual point of injury. So for an example, like a hammy tear, if you've had a hammy tear, like it's so important to look at what's happening in your hips, what's happening in your calves, your ankles, so that when you do go back to your sport, all of them have stayed conditioned, and so you're not just going to come in with weak ankles or weak through your hips and cause an injury there. So with that example, if you've taken all this time off, or you've changed your training because of the medial elbow tendinopathy, and then you go back just thinking your shoulders are going to be in the same place, you've got to realize you've been deloading for all this time, so suddenly your shoulders aren't where they used to be, and you're much more likely to injure yourself. So again, just be patient with this stuff, pick your goals, and just work towards that. But be really, strict with yourself. But human nature, it's hard.
Just quickly,
So-
Michael P has asked.
I'm about to answer that now.
Yeah.
So, Quok, I'm just going to answer Quok first. Have you guys talked about band-assisted pull-ups? Just wondering if you would recommend eccentric pull-ups with bands. That is tomorrow's show. All of tomorrow's show is
good.
about bands, eccentrics, all of that. So
we
make
get
sure,
Quok on the show?
make sure you tune in tomorrow.
That's right.
Michael P has a cracker of a question. Could you guys touch on the importance of horizontal pulls for conditioning? My calisthenics work has mainly been vertical pulling, and we have heard about doing horizontal pulling for conditioning. To touch on that, I would say that it is absolutely critical. It is I cannot tell you how badly you are going to suffer in the future if you only do vertical pulling and you don't do horizontal pulling. You want to think of pushing and pulling being broken down into horizontal and vertical, and they oppose each other, and they're both as important as each other, and you can program them very differently. You can do a cycle where you only do vertical pushing and pulling, or horizontal pushing and pulling, or you can do cycles where you do both in the same cycle. Personally, I always do both. At Unity Gym, we either do one vertical pushing and pulling day and one horizontal pushing and pulling day, or personally for me, because I train for 2 to 2.5 hours a day, I do both horizontal and vertical pushing and pulling on both days twice a week, and that's how we do our UMS online. So you absolutely need to do it, and with calisthenics, the easiest way to get started is with gymnastics rings, doing horizontal ring rows.
Yeah, I just want to dive in and say, Michael, there's a notion that you, and a lot of people believe this, that you can offset horizontal pushing, so bench press movements, which usually are done a lot, with vertical pulling movements like chin-ups. And it's not right. It's not correct. And you need to be balancing both horizontal and vertical pushing and doing both of them. You can't just do pull-ups or muscle-ups and lots of bench press. You just won't end up with the right balance.
And the reason for this is, as I've kind of ranted about many times before with the shoulder, it's so cool because there's just, it's only your collarbone that's attaching the shoulder, your arm and your scapula to the rest of your body. So it's all about the muscle balance and the muscle timing around it. And so if you're only ever training in one plane, so that's that vertical up and down, and you're not getting anything in front or behind, let alone all the other sort of ranges you can go into. If you're really restricted to that range, then you're going to develop muscles in that one particular way, and you'll probably be pretty good at pull-ups to a point. But as soon as you start to challenge yourself outside of that range, then it's going to be really problematic. And that balance between pushing and pulling, horizontal and vertical, is what develops really strong, stable shoulders. So
yeah, and they have to be done at a 1-to-1, horizontal push to horizontal pull, 1-to-1. We're going to wrap this up today, guys. This is amazing discussion that we're having, but we're running out of time, and I'm going to wrap it up by touching on 2 little comments here. We've got one from Jarakichi on yesterday's show saying, I was relieved to hear you say that it could take up to 6 months to see any real changes in your body. My lack of progress, particularly in pull-ups, really bummed me out earlier this year, so I will give this another shot with a different mindset. Great show. Glad I found you. And also, Holy K-Night, Tommy, commenting on the show here saying, "Brah, same thing with my karate training. Absolutely no hypertrophy or pulling strength in spite of what I thought was hard. Martial arts conditioning. Absolutely humbling to realize how little I can actually do." And I'm saying both those comments and responding to them in the same thing, because I want you guys, like, I'm seeing a really good pattern here. People are starting to realize the amount of time that it takes to develop change. And like when I see you, Jarakichi, saying, you know, I've done it for seeing you guys say that it takes up to 6 months. I want to say, when I say it takes up to 6 months, I'm saying that's like a minimum time that I would, in my mind, say this is what I'm going to do for my body. I think what the biggest problem that people have these days is that they're concerned about what they can achieve in 30 days or in 90 days or whatever, because there's all these 30-day challenges and, you know, 6-week challenges on the internet. I think people should be much more concerned about with what they can achieve in 5 years or in 10 years. And Phil always talks about this. He says, like, think about, why are you training? Are you doing it for an event, or are you just doing it for yourself? And I've found that the only way that I was ever able to achieve anything really worthwhile in my life was when at age 30, I said, okay, well, from 20 to 30, I got to here and I'm not even close to where I want to be. So let's think about not what I'm going to achieve by the time I'm 31. Let me think about what am I going to achieve by the time I'm 40. And when you have a game plan like that, 6 months is like a blink in time, and you don't worry about it. You don't worry you don't look forward at 6 months. Like when I did this shoulder injury back in April, I said to myself, when I realized, when I got the MRI, I went, okay, well, this is going to be the year of rehab, and then next year will be the year where I'll do this. And that wasn't a big deal for me. I didn't think to myself, oh my God, my shoulder's stuff, I'm going to be out for so long, because it was just this idea of, okay, well, this is just another little blip in my long-term plan.
Just got to love that process.
Yeah.
And yeah, it does, like, human nature is the enemy of, you know, doing things the right way, but you just got to have that understanding around, you know, what is important long terms, and, you know, you want to be that person at the end of your life who's able to, you know, stay active, do everything you want to do with a body that's not aching constantly. So if you take a good approach now, then, you know,
and you see those guys on YouTube that are in their 70s and 80s that are banging out pull-ups, and they've got these rigs on them, and then you see you only need to step out on the street to see the people that are in their 70s and 80s that are the total opposite of that can barely walk without a walking stick. And I know who I want to be, and I know what I'm working towards. You know,
it comes to consistency. Thanks, Richie, for answering that question from Maria there. So the horizontal pull today was the pulling exercise, and certainly that chest press is a nice way of being able to measure it with free weights. So
my goals for age 50, Karina, is to be on the cover of Men's Health magazine. That's no. I'm my honestly, I've got so many goals. It'd take a show for me to say them. They're all around movement, gymnastics, calisthenics, body weight, strength training. I'm very, very specific with my goals, and there's not enough time in the rest of this show to line them out. But if you ask again, I'll be, or even if you ask on the Movement Mastermind, I'll be glad to share them with you.
And mine, for my moustache, should be down to my knees.
Yeah.
So
in relation to this show, my goal is within the next couple of years is I want to be able to do a one-arm pull-up. So in relation to what we're doing today, I hope to have a strong moustache game like Phil. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. Great stuff today. Make sure you tune in tomorrow, because tomorrow we're going to get you out there and show you some techniques for how to develop pull-ups using eccentrics, using progressive overload, and we're going to tell you the scoop on using bands to get better at pull-ups and whether they're a good idea or not. And the answer is not what you think. So make sure you tune in tomorrow. Have a great day.
Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, it's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that far.
It's the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.